And whoever you are, if you clicked on this video, it's probably because you have some questions, and hopefully we can help with that. We've been traveling full-time for 3 years. The whole point of travel for us is to seek new experiences. Sometimes that means where we travel, and sometimes it's about how we travel.
Go down.
All right, we've had one heck of a time trying to make this video. This is why we don't do videos like this very often. We've had bad weather, jet skis, and jet noise. We're sorry for the jet noise, but we are very close to the Navy base in Key West. Jet.
We'll be back in 3 minutes to land.
Okay, moving on. What we wanted to do was answer a lot of questions that we've been getting. So if you saw our last video, then you know our life looks very different than it had in the past. But because we have been posting all of that information and all those pictures, we've gotten a lot of questions. It seems like everybody who lives on a boat wants to move into an RV, and everybody who lives in an RV wants to move on to a boat. And so we took all the questions and we compiled them together, and we broke them down into what we think are 10 pretty solid categories. But there's something really important to remember. Everything that we're covering in this video, while we hope this information is helpful, it's all very subjective.
Based on how we lived our life in our 35-foot fifth wheel and in our 41-foot sailboat.
Yeah, which brings us to our first category, which is
The cost.
So that's the question everybody wants the answer to, and the one no one can really accurately provide you, because it all depends on how you live. Our upfront costs for our RV plus our truck were significantly more than our upfront costs for the purchase of our boat. However, I think you would agree with me on this. From an annual perspective, we definitely spend significantly more to live on the boat and maintain the boat than we ever did with the RV. Which brings us to our second category as soon as this jet finishes flying by. And our second category is maintenance.
Realistically, you can expect to spend 10% of the value of your vessel on maintenance a year. That's what the professionals say, and so far that has proved to be true for us. That we probably spend about $10,000 a year on maintenance items for the boat. We only did the regular maintenance things on the RV, same with the truck as well. You're doing oil changes and tire changes, and other than that, as long as you don't have anything catastrophic happen, you're good to go.
When it comes to safety on the boat, you definitely need to be a lot more self-reliant. So you need to know that if something breaks, you have the capability of fixing it or the capacity to manage that broken thing until you can get to help. And so making sure your systems are all maintained to the best possible level is absolutely vital. So DJ is down below just doing engine checks. It is just as vital when you live in an RV, but you can get away, I think, with a little bit more on an RV than you can on the boat.
I agree!
Low coastal clouds will be rolling in later tomorrow afternoon. Tomorrow night's lows in the 50s, cool and breezy through Wednesday with a chance of rain on Thursday.
Weather on a boat is a whole new thing, and we have been through some weather on our boat.
The tropical storm's been updated. It's going to be a little bit stronger than they expected.
It's really actually getting worse since we got out here like 3 minutes ago. Might be back to the park. We're trying to make it to the beach. I don't think we're going to make it.
Yeah, you basically have to become a meteorologist. You have to be self-reliant on what you know and how to keep yourself safe. And weather can destroy you.
Of course you need to be safe with weather in an RV. We're not trying to diminish that, but it really isn't a big deal. If it's cold outside, you turn on the heat, throw on some extra layers. If it's hot outside, you put on the AC. or you open a window. If it starts to snow and the roads are icy, stop driving. It really isn't a big deal. If a boat is moving until you can reach a safe anchorage. And I have a crab trap. This is fun. If it's snowing and you're sitting in an RV looking at the snow probably looks beautiful. It's lightning outside. You think, oh, that's such a cool storm. If it's lightning and you have a 65-foot aluminum pole in the air attached to your home, lightning becomes significantly less cool. We keep having to stop and take breaks because of the jets, and it's really gotten very hot out. Oh, this is a good one.
Oh.
Speed of travel.
Wow. In an RV, in a car, truck, whatever you've got, you get in your car and you just move. And you're doing anywhere between 35 miles an hour and 60 miles an hour. It's great. It's amazing. You're there in exactly what Google says, 4 to 6 hours, wherever you want to go.
And if you get tired, you just pull off the road.
Yeah.
No big deal.
50 miles in a sailboat could be 18 hours, depending on the wind and the current and everything like that. If we wanted to go 50 miles just using our motor, the minimum it would probably be a 7-hour day.
Yep. And if it gets dark and we get tired, we don't have the option of just pulling over usually. Sometimes we do, but not usually. So there are some big differences. Basic breakdown, truck and RV. If you want to get somewhere and get to enjoying it, that is a lifestyle for you. If you want to take your time, look at your surroundings, then a boat is what you need. We get a ton of questions about how do you know where you can anchor your boat? You can pretty much anchor your boat anywhere is the uncomplicated answer to that question. There are some rules in certain towns about how close you can be to a seawall, or of course if you're in a marine sanctuary, you really can't be putting an anchor down in protected areas. And so there are some things, but generally speaking, you can pretty much drop the hook anywhere your heart desires. In contrast to that, with an RV, you generally need to look for things like public lands, BLM lands, to be able to find free places to park your RV. So some of the times those places are amazing, and sometimes they can be kind of questionable. And I think the same goes for the boat as well. Like, you can find great anchorages, and you can find anchorages that you think, yeah, one night here is going to be plenty. But yeah, they are comparable. I would say that overall, I think it's a whole lot easier, though, to find a free spot for your boat than it is to find a free spot for your RV. I thought that this next topic was really interesting because we got so many questions about it, and I really was surprised because I wouldn't have thought to ask this.
I wouldn't either.
But a lot of people wanted to know, like, what is the major differences in managing your tanks on the sailboat versus on an RV? And the difference is, in an RV, you have 3 sets of tanks: black, fresh, and gray. On the sailboat, you only have 2 sets of tanks, and that's black and fresh. On our sailboat, we only have 1 set of tanks, which is fresh, because we have composting toilets, so we don't even have to worry about a black tank. The major difference, though, I would say, in the management of that tanks comes down to the ease of filling and unfilling them.
On a sailboat or any motor yacht, etc., most people will empty their tanks when they're offshore. There are rules and guidelines that they have to follow, and they go offshore and they're able to dump their black tank.
Sounds very unpleasant.
We've never had to do that. You're inshore, and it's $5 to $10 to have a pump out boat come to you. Or you have to go to a marina, spend the night, they'll do it all at the marina. In an RV, you're either going to a station that you had to find on your own, or you're staying in an RV park. Very similar processes, not a whole lot to it. The biggest difference in all this is that our tanks are larger than they were ever in the RV. We have 150 gallons of fresh water, and we would have had 60 gallons of black tank if we hadn't switched over to composting. In our RV, we had 30 gallons of black tank and 75 gallons of fresh water. So that made a big difference for us.
We can stay out for twice as long as we ever could in the RV, because the thing that filled up first for us was always the gray tank, which is where our shower water and our sink water went to, and we don't have to worry about that on the boat because boats don't have a gray tank. All that shower water, all that sink water just goes right overboard. We've managed to go about 30 days without having to worry about water or tank issues or anything like that. Whereas in the RV, I think our max stay was about 12 days.
It was 2 weeks, I think, yeah.
So the boat is definitely more efficient in terms of all that. However, it is definitely comparatively more difficult to refill those resources unless you have something like a water maker on board, which costs a lot of money. And we're not spending that kind of money right now. So if you have a boat with a water maker, you're golden. If you don't, it gets a little bit more complicated.
The next topic that we're going to go over is docking and or parking your RV. Two totally different monsters. They are, depending on your ability, both relatively easy.
Yeah.
As long as you take your time, you do small movements, you get back into a space or pull through it.
When moving your boat, whether it's a big issue, because sometimes the wind will push you onto the dock, sometimes it'll push you off.
I think the biggest issue with a boat and docking is that it's not whether or not you're going to hurt your boat as much as you're going to hurt all the other boats around you. We've been to a couple of marinas where the boat on either side of us was worth more than $1 million each. And that becomes quite stressful when you're trying to put your boat into a little tiny slip, either directly next to one within a foot of another boat or, 2 feet of another boat. You don't really have that issue as much with RVs.
It is definitely, I think, more stressful and more strenuous to dock a boat than it is to park an RV, but the principles are all the same.
Yep.
Slow is smooth, smooth is fast. I like this next topic. Exercise. This is one we get a lot of questions about. People say, is it really hard to exercise on the boat? And I would say, no, it's not, but you definitely have to be a lot more deliberate. When we lived in the RV, if you've seen any of those videos, you know that we hiked, we biked, we paddled almost every single day.
Now we don't hike as much, but we go swim more. And we have more dedicated time to exercise. You don't have the opportunity to get 10,000 steps on a 40-foot boat.
You can pretty much cook anything either on a boat or in an RV that you can cook in a normal house. You might have to get a little bit more creative. Like, I really hate doing dishes and DJ really hates doing dishes. And so we try really hard to just use like one pot for everything. So if we're making pasta, we boil the water, pull the pasta out, cook the meat, add the sauce, add the pasta back in. So we're only getting one dish dirty. And if we really had it our way, we probably would just eat right out of the pot, so we didn't have to make bowls dirty, but we haven't stooped to that level yet. Where it differs between the RV and the boat is how we store our food. In our RV, we had the advantage of having a double-doored fridge and double-doored freezer, and we had an absolutely massive pantry.
Yeah.
In the boat, we have neither. We have a very small fridge and freezer, plus a 12-volt freezer that we use for extra frozen food storage so we can go out and stay out longer, but we have no pantry space whatsoever. All of our food is stashed away underneath beds, in bilges,
Under the floorboards.
Under the floorboards. So when it comes time to cook a meal, yeah, it's kind of like an Olympic sport sometimes to get your food out.
Other than that, I think that they're relatively similar.
Again, it's relative. If you have a van, you're probably thinking to yourself, yeah, I totally get that. But in our fifth wheel, we had tons of food storage space, whereas in our boat, that's not really the case. We have to move. Hang on. Anyway, that pretty much wraps it up, I think. Yeah?
Yeah.
So I think we've covered all 10 topics. Hopefully we've answered a lot of your questions. If you have more questions, drop them in the comments. We're happy to answer anything. Or send us a message on Instagram. Yeah.
There's a million questions out there. If you have any, please send them to us. We'll do our best to answer every question and get back to you as quickly as we can, because there's no way in one short video that we can cover every question that anybody would ever have.
Yep. And now that we've answered all your questions, we're going to rip off all these clothes and jump in the water because it's really, really hot out.
All right.
So basically, we wanted to make a video about airplanes flying over Key West. Jet. So our next category, nope. Son of a plane.
It's a commercial plane, okay.
So we have the Navy
Base
base
on one.
over here, and we have downtown Key West Airport over here. It's very busy skies over Key West.
Little tiny island with a lot of planes.
Why? Jet. So,
Okay, just stop for a minute.
we still got the airplanes. That is, something is getting eaten. Sorry, I got really distracted.